I want to share something with you, but please don't post my full name. I'd also prefer you omit the name of my business, even though I'll tell you where it is to make the story feel more credible. I've known about this for a long time. I've heard different versions of the same thing, the same creature, but everyone describes it with different details. I have my business along the road that leads to Abelardo L. Rodríguez Dam in Tijuana. Before me, the place was occupied by another family business. I used to go there a lot, so I've basically grown up in the area. Lately, though, it feels like it's getting less and less busy. The first time I heard about this, I was a child. I visited the place I just mentioned, and the older son from the family next door used to play with me. We were the only kids around, so it was inevitable that we became close. I remember one time, the moment he saw us arrive, he ran up to our truck. He was desperate. He motioned for me to hurry up and get out. When we finally got out, he started telling everyone, even my parents, that his brother had just seen the devil. My father, skeptical but curious because of how emotional the boy was, told him to calm down and explain what he meant. It turned out that the older brother of that kid, back then he was about 15 or 16, would go running very early in the morning, almost every day, at a time when most people still hadn't really seen daylight. On that particular morning, while crossing the narrow 2-lane road over the dam, he heard a heavy, dragging breath, like a deep sigh, coming from above, from the structure of the dam gates, roughly 15 meters up. He stopped to try to watch in the darkness, but all he could see was a shape, almost like a silhouette. He thought it was his imagination and kept running. Then he heard something else, a strange sound, like something large unfolding. When he turned, he saw a dark, nearly imperceptible figure with wings spread wide, wings enormous enough that they didn't look real. He ran as fast as he could until he bumped into a truck and begged the driver to take him. By the time he was finally able to tell us all this, he was still at his house hours later, sick with fever, probably from the shock. For many years, he stopped running around there. I, too, buried the story in my memory. Of course, people in the area talk about lots of things. Ghosts, La Llorona, a woman in white at certain hours. But it was years before I heard anything again about this creature. And then, around 2005, the stories started coming back, and more often every year. What I'm about to tell you happened years ago. I was talking with a friend who worked at the police station, the one just a few meters from the dam entrance. I hadn't seen him in a while, so we kept talking even after 10 o'clock at night. We were almost about to say goodbye when a pickup truck pulled in at full speed and rushed into the delegation parking lot. Because of the kind of insecurity people deal with in Tijuana, everyone was alerted immediately. But it turned out the boys were terrified. They got out of the truck asking for help and told the police what had just happened. They had gone to the dam area, which at the time was almost dry, and they stayed there after dark. Near where they were playing music and had a small campfire, they heard a loud noise close by. They turned off the music and tried to investigate with their flashlights through the bushes. They thought someone might be nearby, maybe with bad intentions. Suddenly, one of the girls screamed. Everyone aimed their flashlights in the direction she pointed. They described seeing a winged figure, over 2 meters tall, that moved between the bushes with a speed that didn't make sense. Then they saw nothing. They lost track of it, but they heard the sound of huge wings flying away. I heard them telling the story in a panic, almost unable to speak without shaking. After that, they took them into the police station facilities, and I said goodbye to my friend. He had gone back to handle it, even though his shift was already over. A few days later, he came to my business. I asked him how drunk the boys from the winged monster situation were. He told me only one of them had been drinking, and that it was something deeper than it seemed, no matter how unbelievable it sounds. There were several reports about it. Nobody ever took them seriously, not even when they came from other officers. But then I saw it myself. He told me, "I've already seen it. I saw the gargoyle." "What are you talking about?" I said, trying to smile, hoping he was joking. But he stayed serious and told me this next part. He said, "Long ago, we went to the baptism of a coworker's child. I didn't live far from there, so a few of us left our cars outside the station. When we were leaving, I returned to work in my own car. The coworkers who didn't drive asked me for a ride. I agreed because they lived around the Florido area. It was on the way. One of the men rode with me in front, and the other, a secretary, sat in the back. We drove and talked happily, still in the mood from the party. We were about halfway over the dam when I hit the brakes. I stopped completely. Everyone went quiet, trying to figure out what we were seeing. About 80 meters from us was something that looked like a person crouched down, but you couldn't see its head or any clear shape. It seemed covered by a black blanket, far too dark, even though our headlights were shining on it. It was completely black, and it looked like it was over 1 meter tall even while crouched. I switched to high beams and it flew up. I swear it flew, like a huge animal. Even in the darkness, though, we could tell it had a humanoid shape. It was the gargoyle we'd been hearing about, the one we all thought was just an old story. When he finished, I noticed a customer watching us very carefully. He had heard everything, and then he told us about his own experience too. After that, maybe because of fate, maybe just because of coincidence, I started hearing about more sightings around here. More people, more stories, and they really seemed to be happening more and more frequently. At least last year, I heard it had been seen 5 or 6 times, at least as far as I know. Some people say it steals livestock, especially goats. Others say they've seen it come out from the dam gates. Recently, some boys told my son that they believed they saw it carrying something in its claws that looked like a 2 or 3-year-old child. Of course, if something like that had really happened, the news would have been huge, very loud. I'm sharing this because I truly want to know if there are other people with stories, and if they'll share them too. I hope you liked my story. And thank you, if you decide to pass it along.